Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to OGV Energy Live. And this is our Asset Integrity Special. My name is Eric Doyle, and this is our interactive live stream show coming to you for the very first time from the OGV headquarters here in Aberdeen. Stay with us for a great show where we're going to bring you news and insights from the energy sector as usual by bringing to life the UK's leading energy industry publication, OGV Energy Magazine. So each month, as you all know by now, we feature interviews and discussions with our partners from the publication and across the industry. This month being the asset integrity issue for the magazine, and we are delighted to have with us as our headline speakers, Alistar from Ithaca Energy and David Cameron from the Net Zero Technology Centre. Alistar and David will be giving us an overview of the key trends and new technologies they are seeing in the space. And then we're going to move into, as per tradition, our In the Spotlight section of the show, where we feature Neil Wilson from Can Group, Willie Tulloch from PIM, and Louis Pietrenek from Westerton Access. Then we're going to move into Market Watch to give you all those up-to-the-minute market updates with Neil Golding from the Energy Industries Council. And finally, we're going to finish off with some global perspectives on the topic of asset integrity when we check in with Gunnar Hilson from Oceaneering. Before we start the show, I just wanted to say hi to some people who have joined us today, and it's very good of them to do so. Who was first in? Let's see, it's Alistar Dickinson. Welcome to Alistar. Nice to be first through the door. I've been camped outside for 3 days. Absolutely. Beth Alexander is here. Welcome, Beth. Heather Buchan is here. I'm just picking randomly, so don't get upset. John Bloomfield, thank you very much for joining us today. Angelo, lovely to have you with us. We have Paul Wilkinson, Nicola Hodgson, and more people are coming in. They're doing the right thing. By all means, jump in. We're in Aberdeen. Tell us where you are. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from, and tell us what company you work with. If you've got an asset integrity kind of bent to what you do, let us know, because that's what we're here for after all. So keep the comments coming in. As for anyone who watches this show will know that our producer, Dan Hyland, sits in the wings, trying to pretend he's not here, but he is here. And he's looking out for the most well-put comment or question to any one of our guests today. That person will win once he's decided, and he's very fair. You will win a half-page advert or editorial in a future magazine. Your marketing team and your leadership team will love you. So keep your great comments and questions coming in. Let's say hi to a few more people before we start. Andy Dodds is here. Andy's saying, good afternoon all from Stork Asset Integrity Services. Looking forward to hear about the challenges and insights. Brilliant. Jim Dallas is here. Joe Hughes, Matthew is with us. Brilliant. Let's get the show started, why don't we, and bring on our headline guests. I'm going to switch off these little captions here so we don't distract from your attention. We're going to start with Alistar Bissett. Alistar, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Eric. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks very much for having me.
Magic. Thank you. Brilliant. And we're going to bring on David Cameron from NZTC. Brilliant to have you both here. How's things, David?
Yeah, very good, Eric. Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. We're looking forward to a great show. So, Alistar, if I may, I'm going to start with you, if that's all right. For more of our international guests who might not be completely au fait with what Ithaca's focus is, could you give us a bit of an update, just a bit of a summary?
Yeah, sure. So we're an independent energy company focused on oil and gas, looking at the UK continental shelf. We've got a few Ithaca legacy assets, and since 2019 we also took on Chevron North Sea's operated portfolio. So we operate several fields, including Captain and Alba, and really we're looking to maximize the recovery from those, operate them safely and efficiently, and do what we can to get the most out of the basin with those assets.
Fantastic. A grand ambition indeed. So clearly the asset integrity, asset integrity has been maybe not the term, but maintenance, predictive maintenance, risk-based maintenance, all the way through the years and all the evolutions of what asset integrity means to us today in the offshore world, and of course in the downstream onshore world as well. I only realized myself a few years back that one of the keys to asset integrity is, and a forward-moving industry approach to asset integrity is collaboration. So in your view, how are operators like yourself engaging with each other and groups like NZTC and others? How is that actually working in real life?
Yeah, I think it's quite positive, to be honest. And I think there's several different networks and groups in place. As you alluded to, Dave and I work together through the collaborations that NZTC has with several operators. both directly and through other different groups that are out there. In the integrity space, we've also got an asset integrity task group, which has gone through various guises over the years, but in the last couple of years has been reinvented a little bit and is now chaired and facilitated through OE UK.
Right.
There's that sector as well, and they're involved with the Topsides UK conference each year. And there's really good visibility of things like the NSTA technology and stewardship plans, and also sharing of learnings. Step change for safety is a really good resource. A lot of key integrity topics there. And I think people just generally do talk to each other. I think we appreciate we share a lot of the same challenges and a lot of the same opportunities. So although COVID had its challenges for everyone, the joys of online technology and ways of communicating, and now back to in-person meetings, I think there is a lot of sharing and openness and helping each other out as to what's working, what's not working, and what can we do better and more effective as we go forward.
Very good. And you've been in the asset integrity space for a long portion of your professional career. Have you seen more of that collaborative sort of vein yourself? Is that something that you see as a marked change from when you get into the sector?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's the understanding, whether it be that most, I guess, perhaps with fewer operators in the basin than there were many years ago, and there's now a focus where most of them who are active have some of, if not all of, the same issues when it comes to integrity and maintenance. So it makes sense, to be sharing those learnings and those insights. With new technology and new developments, there's always the race to be second, if you like. And I think in integrity, there's a bit more of an understanding that if it's not a challenge for you right now as an operator, the chances are it will be in the coming years if someone else is going through it. And I think when we see, the regulator and others who highlight some of the issues that we have, I don't think anyone's exempt from going to be facing those or facing them currently. So yeah, there's good discussion, and Dave and groups like Net Zero are very actively involved and helping champion the new technologies and the new opportunities to take things forward.
Great stuff. You've mentioned challenge a few times in the last couple of minutes. Could you sort of home in on some of the key challenges that operators are staring right in the face of the moment?
Yeah, I should have said opportunity a few times as well to balance it up,
Opportunity,
shouldn't
balance
I?
it, yes.
I think for me, most folks in the sector will be aware that one key one is resource availability. Now that we're post-COVID, actually getting the people to get after maintenance and integrity backlogs is a real challenge. A lot of personnel have been lost to other industries or other parts of the globe, so it's trying to attract them back and being able to have the resource to tackle a lot of the challenges we've got. I think the maintenance and integrity backlogs are big focus areas for the HSE, rightly so. And there is, expectations that the regulator has come in with it, particularly since COVID, that are looking to be enacted. So it's trying to build that into asset plans, and balance it up with other things that we're doing, both in terms of safety and production efficiency, and trying to get the priority for those. I think on an integrity specific one, and one that's been a big focus for me, is I'm going to call them problem components. That's not a very technical term. I'm sure others have a lot better ways of describing them, but elements of pipework and structures that maybe weren't reported in years gone by when it was reporting by exception. So now we're seeing a lot of issues with things like trunnions, dead legs, spring hangers, areas which really can catch you out from an integrity point of view. And a lot of operators don't necessarily have all the data on those.
Right.
Certainly don't have the inspection history on them, and often they need different techniques and different ways of being inspected. So that's where a lot of the new technologies, both in terms of the inspection, detection, and also the visualization side, can really help out. And I think the final one I'd add is just managing the integrity as we get to late life, or COP for a lot of the assets. There's a thinking that you can just turn off the tap, and close to turning off the tap, you can stop your inspection programs, when in reality there's just as much focus, not just through to that date, but beyond it, in terms of the systems and utilities you'll need for actually decommissioning. So it's trying to make people aware that there is a requirement for that, and that's something that's going to be a challenge beyond when you're getting oil out the ground at that installation.
Very much so, and thanks for that response. Hi to everyone that's joined us and been nice enough to let us know that you're there. Hi to Olga from Sandnes. Hi to you, Olga. Steve Johnson is with us, Ian Stewart, John McDonald and Simon Hurst. you have an operator here from Ithaca Energy, the man in charge of asset integrity. If you have a question or a comment on anything that Alistar has just said regards to challenges or moving forward, by all means join in, put your comments in and we'll put them to our guests. Thanks very much. Alistar, what other technologies and kind of developments are you guys at Ithaca and other operators really interested in? What's catching the attention at the moment?
Yeah, well, there's a lot, which is good. There's a lot out there and a lot of opportunity. I think Dave will share shortly on some of the elements of that. And one that we work closely with him on is CUI, corrosion under insulation. Ways of monitoring that, and ways of being able to tackle that, and also kind of try and avoid it going forward for the newer assets and designs. I think a similar area for us is a lot of temporary or defined life repairs. We've got a lot of those in place in our aging assets. So ways that we can address those going forward. We're always interested in new technologies. And also, I think there's a lot of work being done by several companies in terms of the monitoring and active monitoring of temporary repairs, so that you don't necessarily have to remove and reinstate, but you can get a better understanding of condition as you go. I think a big one that a lot of folks on the call will be aware of is the aspects of laser scanning and 3D modeling and digital visualization. That's obviously a big hitter for people at the moment. We've utilized that for engineering and repair orders quite effectively, and I know a lot of other operators have as well. I think the next challenge is getting that into companies' remote visual inspection strategies, being able to validate the work, and knowing how exactly you go about it. But certainly there's huge opportunities there in terms of problem components, in terms of anomaly management, and really ways of taking people out of harm's way, first and foremost, with some of the more sensitive and labour-intensive inspections. Another couple I just mentioned quickly, we are software integration and interfacing is a big one for us. I'm by no means a software expert. I'm probably quite the opposite. But it's interesting that there's so many different softwares and packages which do different things. But from an operator point of view, I think the analogy is I'm probably not capable or not wanting to be sitting in the kitchen with all the ingredients trying to cook. And I think anyone who's tried my cooking would vouch for that. But instead, I want to know what's out there in terms of the ready-made meals or the M&S dine for £10 offers. I guess looking for the supply chain to say, well, if you're looking to improve your RBI, your anomaly management, your digital stuff, we can come together with a package of offerings. And so helping the operators connect the dots and almost giving us the pre-made version is going to be something that's a big factor going forward and definitely helps us out. I'm not sure if that analogy resonates too well, but
I think it does. But just for the
helps.
benefit of advertising and all that, other discount meal deals from providers are available. No, great stuff. I know exactly what you're talking about there, and that's a great for the people from the supply chain and asset integrity to hear that. That's collaboration, getting together, presenting one complete solution is of favour right now. I'm going to jump to the audience before I ask you anything else, if that's okay. I think we've got Gareth from GDI here who's asking, how are Ithaca addressing their problem components? You teed it up. You knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, no, I did tee it up. Yeah, I think we're looking at them in different ways. There's some where it's going to be solutions like digital visualization or possibly robotics that are going to help us. There's some where it's new techniques. Some areas need radiography as the conventional method. Radiography is very difficult logistically and time to sort. So new radiography techniques that are available and out there, and new tools. I think it's a broad brush approach, really.
Right.
I think different challenges and different components will have different ways of being captured and addressed. But certainly the digital aspect, both in terms of the scanning and the modeling data, is key, and also the software with where you capture all that and manage it. I think a lot of the software issues which we've faced here, and I'm sure other operators are the same, it's management of 1 million Excel spreadsheets, and it's probably not the most effective use of people's time. Whereas if you can get ideally one software, or if not 2 or 3 that talk to each other to start tracking that data, then that's going to help you massively in the future. So whatever tools or techniques are used, I think they need to be able to talk to and feed into the software packages that operators are trying to move towards.
Right. Okay. Good stuff. And thanks to Gareth for asking the question. Lastly, from me, with yourself, Alistar, if you could appeal to, you've already mentioned the sort of the ready-made meal and being able to interface with existing systems and all of that. If you could make any appeals to extended appeals to the supply chain that are listening to the day that want to help you, what do you really need?
Yeah, apart from lots of nice ready-made meal options for those
We've gone
things.
down a rabbit hole, haven't we?
Yeah, no, I think, you know, I've had good and bad experiences with supply chain over the years, and I would say more recently a lot of good ones with people coming to us and asking what the problems are.
Mm.
I think maybe in days gone by, and when I've been in previous roles with Ithaca and Chevron, you get people coming in and pitching their wares, and whilst it might be a great solution to them, or indeed the last operator they spoke to, it's maybe not what we're after.
Right.
So I think almost coming with a listening ear and being a bit of an agony aunt and listening to what our challenges are, and then going away and saying, well, you've given us 4 or 5 things, here's the 1 or 2 that we can help with. I think it helps make best use of our time and their time, and also helps that discussion to kick on. And also I think the leveraging, the sharing of what's going on, you know, just as we spoke about operators talking to each other, you know, Dave does a very good job of sharing what NZTC are up to. There's other things out there, you know, energy technology platform, which I know has got a collaboration with NSTA now. I think we want to make it easier for operators to know what solutions are out there to start with, rather than have to Google from scratch, if you like.
Right.
And whether that's existing platforms or whether that's ways of coming to us with options and ideas, I think it's trying to make what they're doing more visible. And, you know, a shameless plug for yourselves at OGV, you know, things like this, making things available, engaging with podcasts and sharing what's going on, and kind of doing our work for us, so we can just be lazy and find the opportunities out there would be ideal.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The name's Alistar Bissett, Ithaca Energy. Please connect with Alistar and extend the conversation. We'll maybe take some more questions because there are some excellent questions coming in, and thank you for that. David, we're going to move to you, David Cameron, Project Manager at the Net Zero Technology Centre. So, you know, from the outside looking in, we all think that net zero technology, that you must just be surrounded with new tech and innovation and wonderful new solutions and a sort of view into the future. Can you give us some of the insight of what new and exciting technology means for you?
Yeah, Alistar set us up really well. I appreciate if you don't mention any more food analogies now that it's coming to that time. So, I mean, for those who don't know who the NZTC is, I mean, we started, you know, back in 2017. We were part of the CRD regional deal, which basically means we're government funded, and our main goal at the time was, you know, deploying and accelerating technologies for oil and gas emissions reductions, etc. We pivoted about 2 years ago, and we're now called the Net Zero Technology Centre. So we're looking at investing in technologies that, you know, help accelerate the transition to a net zero energy system. We went through a couple of recent open innovation programs, and to give you an idea of the numbers that called in, there was around 300 technologies between Open Innovation Program 1 and Open Innovation Program 2. So there's a lot of technologies out there that are, you know, trying to get into the space, and they see the net zero technology as a really helpful vehicle to open up the communication lines with likes of Alistar, Ithaca and stuff like that. And there's a couple of exciting technologies that we'll maybe go into in a bit more detail. The open innovation call in asset integrity of late was corrosion under insulation. That's our focus in this call, and some of the technologies that we've got to sort of showcase or let you see today are corrosion under insulation based, because that tends to be, when you have a discussion with the operator, you know, list your top 5, you know, when you're the Alistar's agony and corrosion under insulation comes out, you know, 9 times out of 10. So it's a really important place to be. So that's why we put our focus there.
So last year you did you announced the winners of your 2022 Open Innovation Program. 154 companies applied. You got it down to 20. Such a broad range of emerging technology. You sent me a video, and this is just a snapshot, but I just found it fascinating, on Copsis, the digital skin. And for everyone's benefit, you may not have heard of this. You may have heard of it. If so, it's still worth watching again. Is it okay if I play the video?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
because I think this is fascinating, and I think we should be okay audio-wise. I'm just going to make sure that I'm clicking okay. Sorry, Alistar.
Copsis Intelligent Digital Skin, developed by Copsis, is a truly unique coating system which can be used for a number of applications, including the mitigation and management of CUI.
It detects and locates coating barrier damage or CUI hotspots in real time before corrosion damage can occur. The integrated impressed current cathodic protection within the coating creates an entirely new category of continuous sensor technology, consisting of an epoxy resin with Copsis proprietary additives and proprietary polyamine hardener. Copsis Intelligent Digital Skin is the first technology to digitally detect and locate coating damage. When the skin is damaged, a signal is sent to an electronic controller which processes it to locate the damage. The digital skin coating then provides additional protection to the pipework.
Despite significant industry focus on CUI, close visual inspection remains the primary and most reliable method of detecting and managing CUI. Copsis Intelligent Digital Skin is capable of determining and remotely monitoring the integrity of critical coating barriers without the need for cladding and insulation removal. When installed, this technology will minimize the need for expensive CUI-related inspection campaigns and has the potential to sustainably reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the offshore oil and gas industry by an estimated 5 to 10%.
That is truly fascinating stuff, right?
Yeah, so for us, this was obviously really, really interesting and exciting. We've seen a wee swap, a change into what the sort of focus areas with the operators tend to be in with regards to CUI. So, I mean, before we were looking at sort of technologies, and again, don't get me wrong, there's a couple of technologies that in there still serve the purpose of looking at different technology in the techniques that we were able to see through the insulation without having to remove it to sort of confirm whether or not we have CUI in there. We then have been in a couple of meetings with a few of the operators that were sort of shifting a little bit towards continuous monitoring, as opposed to just letting it happen and then we'll strip it all off and we'll go and fix it. Now we're looking at moisture monitoring. There's some really interesting stuff in the fiber optic space, which we could go into for miles, but the use of fiber optics to take thousands of temperature readings across 100 meters worth of pipe, it's phenomenal technology. And then when Copsis came up with this, the ability to one installer coating, like you're going to have to anyway. So whether you decide that you're going to have to do some remedials on your asset, this particular paint system, granted there's a little bit of electricity required, and there's a little bit of bells and whistles as opposed to just a standard coating. The intention is that it will continuously monitor it. The minute that there is a detected anomaly, so therefore a bit of rust sets in, or there's a nick, or there's a chip, it will send a signal to a digital twin or whatever system you have in place, and then Alistar would be able to send somebody out, strip a meter worth of insulation, repair it, and then we're back to full protection again.
It's incredible stuff. Can we just take a question live off the screen here? Paula Gomez has asked, what's the sort of projected lifetime of that skin?
So the intention is that the projected lifetime is exactly the same as what we would intend to do with a standard epoxy coating. So right. There's going to be no detrimental timescales involved to this coating, but I think it's important to note we're still building the system. The coating is still, the final sort of mix and all that's got to be completed and all that. But it's going to be like for the most popular coating systems we've got out there.
Incredible. Good stuff. Now, for those in the asset integrity space that watch the wires, people may have noticed in the news in the non-intrusive inspection world that there's been some news about the NIFTA program being led up by the North Sea Transition Authority. So, non-intrusive field trial accelerator. What can you tell us about this program?
So it's not the catchiest of names,
no,
but it wasn't up to us to come up with that. So along with the NSTA, one of the biggest issues we found in the NZTC is getting access to field trials. And I have to say, having folk getting involved in projects and, sort of agreeing to become one of our field trial locations is great. Alistar for Copsis is a fantastic example of him buying into the technology, and later down the line when we need some field trials, we'll hopefully knock on Alistar's door and get access to some of his locations so we can try it in a real world situation. NIFTA's been set up, like it says, to try and accelerate field trials, but what we've done, or I say we, but NSTA and Arno Lambs as the main point of contact for NIFTA, is that we've got terminal operators involved. So, we're trying to get the field trials on onshore locations. And that allows us to get easier access, less hazardous environment, and all in all, cheaper access to real life situations. So it's in its infancy. We've had 2 or 3 meetings. We've got 7 or 8 terminal operators involved. The next step for NIFTA will be to determine what technologies we're going to take and take them forward to field trial. So we're probably planning on looking at an inspection technique that will see through insulation, and we're also going to consider looking at a moisture or 24-hour surveillance type moisture monitoring system to install on some systems. The great plan is we will get the likes of Hoyce, Rosen, one of these companies that will pull together a guidance document for us to basically summarize what does a successful field trial look like, so that when it comes to the end, and if we can determine through a third party that the field trial is a success, it does exactly what it says on the tin. We've then got the the documentation, the data to go to these people, the HSEs of this world, and say, guys, here's a technology, we can see through X, Y, and Z in this sort of situation, and hopefully allow us to get technology deployed quicker.
Very good, very good. And addressing all the electricity and systems, the ATEX issues and all of that, with it all packaged up and ready to go.
Yeah, so 99% of our technologies will have an ATEX piece in them, and it's something that we'll advise, to ensure that we're ready to go offshore when it comes. Allowing us access to onshore, in some instances, there's probably more likelihood we'll get into non-hazardous areas. So the ATEX certification doesn't necessarily have to be top priority if we can get into a situation where we can, deploy the technology, test it, validate it, put it through its thingy, and then obviously we'll get the ATEX thing a little bit later on. But yeah, ATEX for everything that we'll be looking at for going offshore.
Will this NIFTA initiative feed into another piece of news in the asset integrity world, the asset integrity collab or collaboration? So is this a new thing that you guys are spearheading?
Yeah, so I think Alistar's teed me up fantastically on it, and I have discussed it with Alistar a couple of times that, when we talk about getting together, pooling resources, costs, expertise in the world, the collab seems like the right place to do it. So I know, I appreciate that we've got the NIFTA collaboration. Alistar's got his other groups that he does with OE UK. We'll map that out. We'll understand what that looks like in a way that we're not overburdening these operators with, cool names of things that we're going to do. But for the NZTC, what we're going to look at doing, and it'll be spearheaded by likes of myself to drive it, is we're going to get the main operators in the basin in a room together, workshop out what an asset integrity collab would look like for them, what's their biggest issues, what's their issues, concerns. And like Alistar mentioned, if it's data, if it's systems and software, if it's human factors, we'll then target our technology calls to answer these issues that the big operators have got. And then when it comes to field trials, somebody might have a site available at that time. If NIFTA isn't an option, then we'll go out and we'll be able to pull all our resources into one group, and then we'll start targeting technologies that the people want to see implemented. Alistar did the fantastic saying, it's a race to be second. I've experienced that a fair bit. When I phone up somebody and say, I'll use Copsis as an example, would you be interested? And they say, yeah, absolutely. In 3 years, once you've proved it works and everything's great, I'll buy it. But that doesn't help the developer.
Nope.
The developers we're dealing with 9 times, I won't say 9 times out of 10, most of the time, maybe haven't stepped foot offshore. There's a company we're working with that has an inspection tool called Subterra. A guy called Dave Haskett. He's a fantastic guy. He's never been offshore a day in his life. So what he'll use the steering group or the collab or something like that to do is get his use case. Yeah. So what does your use case look like? And Alistar will say, right, well, your tool's too big. It has to be ATEX. It needs to do this. It needs to do that. Because, they expect pipe work to be accessible access from, scaffolding all the time. We know that's not the case. So we'll take these guys on a journey and we'll help them build their product so it becomes an easy thing to get out into the market.
Very good. We have a few minutes left in this little section. I'd like to turn to some of the comments from our lovely viewers today. I'm going to go back to one of the early comments from Susan Osbeck. Susan asks, maybe one for you, Alistar, but by all means, both chip in. Our experience is it's very difficult to get the IT departments to accept software packages. What can be done to help operators make changes to their processes and take up the opportunities that are out there? So I guess the question from Susan is there a bit of give and take on interfacing?
I think there is. I mean, we've experienced some where there have been those issues, firewalls and setups and different things. But some of the more recent ones, we've probably not had the same challenges. I think a lot of the companies that we're engaged with on the software front, they've maybe gone through that heartache or that hardship initially, but now there's ways that they've moved their development on and they are able to get through it. So it's not something that we've got the same issues as we did a number of years ago. I think it also helps that, not just in the integrity space, but with so many other things moving forward digitally, I think there has been understanding that in order to harness some of those opportunities, you need to reevaluate what you can and can't allow in. So it's not, I agree it was an issue and it maybe still is for some. It's not one of the key issues we've had at Ithaca with some of our softwares.
Thank you, Alistar, and thank you very much, Susan, for your question. There's another one that's come in from Mark Cowison at LHR Marine. At the recent OE UK HSE conference, only this week, I believe, there was a warning that maintenance backlogs on offshore installations peaked following the pandemic and have never really returned to pre-COVID levels. What are the organisations doing generally to tackle these backlogs? I mean, I'm guessing it's part of your daily, hourly, minutely life, right?
Yeah, it is, and I think the HSE, is the regulator, have come in and are making that point. I would think to all operators, certainly to ourselves and others that I've spoken with, and I think sometimes the phrase HSE visit or HSE action can spark fear, but really I think it's very positive. All of my engagements that I've had with them, they highlight issues where there's justification to what they're identifying, and the fact that it comes from the regulator, it helps identify that to our management in terms of budgeting and prioritization. So, and also it's a journey. I think it's something you can't fix overnight, but if we have a focus on now and we can give clear plans for how we're going to address it, and then the regulator can hold us accountable to that, as they should do, then I think it can move forward. And through recent feedback with HSE and OE UK, I think most, if not all, operators are taking that on. I know they wouldn't publish a league table with who's doing it best and who's doing it worst. That may be a good thing.
Might be a good thing.
But certainly it is something that they're holding people to account on, and not just at the integrity and maintenance level, but at senior management and director level. That's very visible, and at Ithaca, it's something that's a key factor with our scorecards and metrics, and we know we have to implement programs and to make the figures come down and be able to address that effectively.
Lovely. Thank you to Mark for the question. Thanks to Alistar for the response. Gentlemen, we've come to the end of our allocated time in this section. I'd like to thank you very much for your insight. The invitation's there with all of our viewers today. If you want to pick up on something, please connect and extend the conversation with either Alistar or David or both. We look forward to seeing what's coming down the pipeline. Excuse the pun. A few technical questions have come in about Copsis. It was COPSIS Technologies, is that right? So there's a lovely website, and I'm guessing people could get in touch with you, David, if they wanted to be put in touch.
Absolutely. Feel free to get in touch.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you. And thanks for all the questions and comments that came in. We will see you later on. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric. Cheers.
Wasn't that great? And thank you. We do mean it. All of your interaction, your questions and comments are completely valuable and well received. Remember, our producer, Dan Hyland, is sitting in the wings in the green room. He's going to pick out the best question or comment of the day. That person will win for their company a half-page advert or half-page piece of editorial in a future edition of OGV Energy Magazine. and you will be well looked upon by your marketing and leadership team if you win that. Thank you very much to Alistar and David. We are going to move on to the industry spotlight section of our show. I'm going to welcome, first off, Willie Tulloch. Hello, Willie.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Willie. We've got Louis Pietrinac from Westerton Access. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And we have Neil Wilson from Can Group. How are you doing, Neil?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good stuff. Neil, you might be down the bottom in the bottom right-hand corner, but we're going to start with yourself. How's life at Can, and what's happening?
Busy. Same as everywhere just now, I think. So yeah, the main focus of that I want to talk about in my job is about non-intrusive inspection. So we've got an article in OGV Energy Magazine this week about non-intrusive inspection. We're finding more and more usage of non-intrusive inspection in the industry, but it's always worthwhile to remind people and increase awareness of what non-intrusive inspection actually is all about. So when we talk about non-intrusive inspection, we're talking about an alternative to the traditional way of assessing the internal condition of pressure vessels. So traditionally that would be putting a human inside a vessel. So you would have to do that during a shutdown. You would have to isolate the vessel, clean down, and it's a long drawn out process. And obviously you're losing production there. This would be typically done during a shutdown, and you would have a very narrow window to complete a certain number of vessels in a restricted time. So there's lots of disadvantages to the traditional intrusive visual inspection route, including safety. So with confined space, man entry, all that stuff. So non-intrusive inspection is inspecting the vessel from the outside, so scanning the external surface to get information about the internal surface. So
I guess you're watching with some close interest on this NIFTA initiative on non-intrusive inspection accelerating testing programs.
Yeah, there's lots of good stuff going on all the time. But I think the basics of non-intrusive inspection are still in development. There's still a lot of efficiency improvements to be made. It's been around now since, well, the published recommended practice has been around now since 2007. It's currently published as HOIS RP 103. And there's a huge demand for it, but it is quite an overall involved process. It's not an easy thing to do. It's compared to intrusive visual inspection, there's much more planning. It's more risk-based. So you really need to understand what your damage mechanisms are, your damage morphologies, so you can identify inspection techniques to get the best out of your non-intrusive inspection.
Very good, very good. So one of the things that's been common throughout all forms of inspection is the amount of data that it produces. What are the sort of advances that you guys are looking at in data management these days?
Yeah, so non-intrusive inspection is a good example of this, where a non-intrusive inspection, if you're scanning at a 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter resolution, then you can generate literally millions of data points for one vessel. So there's a massive amount of data, and that's true across all aspects of asset integrity. So we're looking at matching inspection data with digital twins. It's a big hot topic in the industry, but obviously there has to be value in that. Yep. So if there's no significant defects, then is it worthwhile overlaying all that massive amount of data on something that's still effectively in brand new condition? So it's the whole thing about data management and all the information we're gathering and the technology, it really needs to be fit for purpose, and there needs to be a defined benefit before just blindly applying digital twins, for example, because they look great on the screen.
Oh, well put, absolutely. The impact of the ever-increasing age of the assets that we are inspecting and that we're trying to apply integrity kind of principles to Is that becoming more of an issue? And how are you handling aging assets at CAN?
So yeah, aging assets is quite an interesting one. So the KP4 initiative, the HSE initiative, that was around about 10 years ago. And a lot of good stuff came out of that. There was definitely a decrease in hydrocarbon emissions at the time. But the focus on that was, well, I think a lot of people thought the focus on that was around about asset life extension. But I think the industry's moved on a little bit now, so we're moving more towards late life operation and towards cessation of production and ultimately disposal. And in that sort of late life, then the whole asset integrity bit changes. So what you're actually trying to achieve becomes slightly different. You don't need to achieve a 10-year inspection frequency, for example. You only maybe need to see it through a smaller number of years. So the non-intrusive inspection part, for example, the hoist recommended practice is quite flexible. So you can define a smaller inspection interval based on the deferral criteria. But yeah, we're always expected to deliver more with less resource, and it's all about optimizing the inspections so we can streamline inspections to get better value to the client. And one of the big things is to increase tool time. Then tablet-based reporting is a big thing for us.
Right.
And the tablet integrates with our integrity management software. So machines talking to machines is so much better than generating reports that are text-based that you can't extract information from. It's setting up all that data at the very start to be in a usable form.
Very good. Neil, we're going to come back to you and talk a bit more about that if we can, if we've got time at the end. But thank you so much for your contribution so far. Willie, consultant at PIM, can you just remind us what PIMS Focus is, Willie?
Yeah, so I guess we take or we define where Neil, the work that Neil does with the offshore and doing the inspections. So we basically work out where you need to be looking for the problem areas or trying to find the problem areas and then take the results back from the inspections and update the database, the integrity management databases to with the new information and look at what further work we need to do beyond that, whether it's further inspection when that is, or is there remedial work to be done, basically interventions to make sure that the equipment stays fit for purpose.
Very good. A question for you. Is the effect of any uncertainty in energy markets, perhaps the oil and gas future in the UKCS, does that have an effect on integrity strategies in practical terms?
Well, massive. Yeah. Absolutely massive effect. I think. I mean, it's something that we talk about, and actually, even if you go back to 2016 when the MER framework came out, so that was the OGA at the time, so that was maximising economic recovery. At that point, we were looking at how could we extract as much of the oil and gas reserves as we got in the UKCS. So that was a government strategy, and one of the things they talked about in there was stability. So I guess we've seen anything but stability since that time, and I guess that was on the back of the last, well, not the last downturn, but the downturn in the sort of 2014, 2016, and I guess every time it's a bit like a sawtooth effect. Every time you see a peak, then I guess there's more revenue created and potentially more money available to maintain the programs, the maintenance and inspection programs. But it's like what Alistar was actually saying, the issue that we see, where we're at now, there's massive backlogs that's been created, and each time, like I say, that just ratchets up every time that there's a downturn. And I guess the impact of that from the two things that you'll see cut probably first of all, when there is a downturn, is I guess the paint that we put on to preserve the plant. And I suppose, we're looking at innovation and technology, and that's moved on a heck of a lot. But it was like we said there just earlier as well. I mean, again, as soon as there's a downturn, the budgets get pulled for, support and advancements and new technologies. So I think it becomes very, very difficult. And also when you're looking at, I guess, these assets now, we're obviously renewable energies, very much in the mix now as well. And I think one positive that we maybe are seeing at the present time is oil and gas is maybe, although it's maybe not seen in the most positive light, I think there's maybe beginning to be a broader understanding of how it actually, or how critical it is in the overall energy mix. But I think that there's still massive challenges basically ahead, and I think if we're looking at repurposing a lot of these assets to support things like hydrogen, CCUS, and also, I mean, obviously in the back of COVID and the war in Ukraine, energy security is, that's another element now, a key element that's come in that I guess is shifting focus back on the importance of domestic oil and gas supplies. So, I mean, while that's happening, I guess all the time when there's so much uncertainty, and I mean, just recently, I guess I think somebody said a senior figure in the oil and gas industry said that it's West Africa is a more stable location to be investing in than the UKCS. So while that remains, and there's uncertainty about the future in the UKCS, then operators are going to be reluctant to be spending the money potentially to keep the assets running in the long term.
Saying it like it is, Willie. One of the things that pops up on, no matter what the theme of this show is, decommissioning, subsea, offshore wind, renewables, whatever it might be, difficulty in attracting talent, keeping talent, specifically in the oil and gas industry, something that you're very aware of and very looking at very closely.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I mean, it just linked to the same theme as we're just talking about there. I think was it back in the downturn in 2016 or 2015, 2016. There were what I think estimated to be about 120,000 people that left the industry, and then obviously we've had COVID, and again, asset operators I guess had to cut down to just core operations. So I guess a lot of the work around inspection programs, etc., was reduced significantly. So I mean, there was I think again looking at figures, maybe sort of 11,000 people almost overnight with COVID that was removed from from the industry, from offshore. So I mean, I guess what eventually happens is that there's a lot of people just, I guess, say it as it is, almost fed up with that, the sort of cyclic nature of oil and gas. So I mean, it's not just the fact that there's also, I guess, alternatives now for attracting that talent into other areas. The rest, and there's some will be moving into renewables. If you look at offshore wind, by 2030, they're estimating there'll be about 27,000 directly employed in offshore wind. Well, a big part of that's going to be integrated work. So I mean, there's a big pressure there, but ultimately for oil and gas, the biggest issue, well, there's two areas where I think we've got challenges. One's at sort of mid-level, at the sort of mid-level or mid-career level, that sort of intermediate level experience, and then also, I suppose, is the trying to attract new talent into the industry. So if you could attract new talent, then you're struggling with having the expertise, at the kind of mid-level to mentor and coach that next level. So, I mean, it's a huge challenge. And then I guess that also relates to, you start factoring in competence. And I mean, that, we were talking about challenges before, Alistar was picking up on that. And I think, one of my fears or areas where I think we've got a significant challenge is just around competence, and the danger that we've got now is that we've got competing sectors and renewables, and again oil and gas. If there's a mini boom that we're in the midst of now, what we have to be cautious with is just basically putting bums in seats and not giving people the right training and the skills to do the job. And I guess when you've got technology, technology is great, but it's like the old adage, it's rubbish in, rubbish out. So I mean, people are still absolutely key to being able to use that technology.
Thank you for that. We could do a whole show on that subject of competence and talent, and probably should. I can see Dan Highland in the wings taking notes and nodding in agreement. Thank you, Willie. Of course, when we set up the show, there was a natural bent towards thinking that we were going to be talking about fixed oil and gas assets in the terms of asset integrity. But we have a relatively new entrant in fixed assets in the offshore world, in offshore wind. Are we seeing this? Are we seeing the lessons learned from maybe some, I don't want to say mistakes, but learning from bumps in the road that we made in oil and gas asset integrity on fixed assets? Have we seen that all fixed in offshore wind? Is it all good?
I would tend not to agree. I don't know. I guess this is maybe anecdotal, and I don't know. This might create a wee bit of controversy, but I do think there is. Well, I guess speaking to someone yesterday, there's a reluctance, or there's an element of reluctance, I think, in offshore wind to be leaning too heavily on oil and gas experience. So it's not necessary to say that the skill set does not exist, but I think there's a notion that oil and gas over engineers things. But I guess what I would say is that there's a lot of learning and knowledge in oil and gas that we absolutely have to take across to offshore wind. And I mean, there's good reason. If you look at just look at the Crine era. I mean, some of the assets that were, and well, I guess for folk that don't know, Crine was a period where they were looking at significantly reduced costs in the oil and gas industry, and some new assets were installed at that time in the North Sea. And I guess some of the first generation assets have long outlasted the ones from the Crine era, and there's good reason why that is. And I think also we offshore wind, they're already, I mean, some other operators or developers I think get it, and it's the ones that have had experience working in the oil and gas industry. Typically the offshore wind installations, whether it's fixed or floating, they are being designed for a 25-year life, but the license blocks that were awarded through the ScotWind licensing are for 60 years. So I mean, and they're liable for those licenses for that period, and so really to maximise the return that they're getting on that, and also look into the future. At the moment, oil and gas still accounts for 75% of the total energy needs, the country. So further down the line, if we're 2050, we're looking at potentially 20% oil and gas and 80% renewables. Then, I mean, at that time we're still going to need those assets out there. There's no cost effective to run the assets for 25, 30 years and then say, right, we'll remove them and then we'll go and install new assets. It's much more prudent and much more economic sense to try and develop assets for the time that they need to be there as well. And I think also something that should maybe worth noting on this, when we look at the scale of what we're talking about here, so I think 28 gigawatts, so installed capacity is what they're looking to put out there. And I remember from the Topsides UK conference in November last year, Mark Wilson from OE UK made a quote that resonated. So he said that basically to install the capacity that we need in offshore wind, we need to be installing a wind turbine every day from now. Well, that's the 2030 target. So we need to be installing a wind turbine every day from now till 2030. Now, a few days has passed since that time, but so as of today, that's 2,476 wind turbines. And to contrast that, in terms of looking at the size of the challenge for integrity management, in 2018 there was 184 oil and gas assets in the North Sea. So you see this. So you see the size of challenge that we've got ahead of us, and it's massive. And I think operators or developers of offshore wind installations need to be factoring in that integrity management in the early stages. And I guess the difficulty we've got, or that they've got, is the speed that they need to be churning these things out. They will have potential issues around quality and putting them out there. So I mean, it's a huge challenge, I think, and I think more needs to be done at this early stage in the development to design out some of the issues that we might see.
Thank you so much for your insight, Willie. Lots of learning in there, and I think we get the idea for about half a dozen new shows from that, specifically focused on them. Louis Pietranic, from Director at Westerton Access. You've sat there patiently waiting, Louis. Thank you so much for joining us. For those who don't know about Westerton, do you want to tell us a little bit about what Westerton Access focuses on?
Yeah, sure. So we're predominantly an inspection company. We were set up in 2015.
Right.
There's been mention of some downturns, so that was kind of one that we didn't expect when we first set up the business, but actually it kind of helped us develop the services that we have. So during the downturn, we went from what was supposed to be a small rope access company to a company that was developing technologies that were or services that were more relevant to the industry in its current declining climate. So Westerton today is an inspection and maintenance company globally, providing asset integrity services to offshore mobile and to fixed assets. And
geographically, you are located where right now?
I'm in Dubai.
You're in Dubai. We always love to have an international flavour to the show with our guests as well. Fantastic. So I read in some of your literature about the whole, how do we keep mobile assets on location during regular operations and still maintain a high level of quality of UWeld inspection? And you guys are sort of tackling that, right?
Yeah, I guess so. That's kind of the service that I mentioned, that the kind of downturn in the industry had helped us to kind of create was exactly that. So, actually, a point that Alistar had made about coming with a listening ear. I guess that we were kind of forced into that situation because no one wanted to buy our services when we first opened because of the downturn. There was a saturated market. We were trying to do rope access. So we just began asking questions. Well, what do you need? What could we do? Where's the pinch points? And the one thing that really came from these conversations with clients was that if they could remove some of the elements of offline time associated to regular inspection services, then that would be something of benefit. And the biggest one that kept coming up was the UWeld surveys, having to take a mobile rig off of location every 2.5 years into a shipyard or sheltered location to do these surveys. So we decided that we would kind of focus on that initially to try and come up with a solution. And thankfully, we were able to kind of come up with or find a couple of different partners who had some technologies and kind of create a method which allowed us to do that. And that's kind of given us the base of our business. So from that, the business grew into several global locations, performing services all over the world, and removing that element of having to have any downtime for routine UWeld or class inspections.
Wow, very interesting stuff. Clearly in that inspection space, you guys have seen, been around since 2015, but in inspection previously, I'm sure. The move from inspection results, we've got the stack of data, we've got all the papers, we've got all the inspection results, to proper data that we can make decisions with. Have you seen a shift to that, or is that something that you're kind of focused on?
No, definitely. I think there's definitely a focus from the client side and from the classes side as well, from talking about the mobile rigs, how we use the data to come up with smarter solutions in different ways of doing inspections in the future. For us, absolutely, it's a focus to kind of use the data that we're taking in all the time. We're taking in tons of data from different clients and different rigs, and using that to kind of refine the way we do our inspections and to come up with alternative or different ways of doing them in the future. So although we have the ROV solution, which allows us to do it offshore on location, maybe we do it different. Maybe we use sensors and monitoring patches and things like this, the technologies that already exist in different industries that can be tailored and made suitable for oil and gas.
Absolutely. Do you see this having any impact, a positive impact on the environmental side of things?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, certainly from moving from the mobile rigs to platforms. So, we strongly believe that the same principles that we've kind of promoted for the mobile rigs of using technology to do inspections with ROVs and smaller ROVs, I should say, on the mobile rigs is just as relevant to the large platforms that need just as many inspections. And talking about backlogs of inspections, and we're seeing clients that are not doing platform inspections for 10 years. And the cost of doing these inspections is one of the main drivers behind not doing anything, which is not really the answer. So we kind of believe that a greener and cheaper solution is to kind of adapt what we've done for the mobile rigs and do the same thing for the fixed platforms. So launching smaller assets, some smaller ROVs from the platform itself, removing the requirement for large diesel burning DSVs and work class equipment. Is certainly a greener solution than perhaps the traditional methods.
Do you also see an effect, a positive effect on health and safety and just general overall efficiency in the use of those smaller machines?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, any way that you can remove the human element from these inspections, certainly when you're going offshore and talking about diving, obviously becomes a very dangerous task. Lots of risks involved in that. So regardless of the competence of the company, there's always that risk there. So any way that you can remove that is absolutely beneficial. So we certainly believe that ROVs is the safest way to do these inspections.
Gentlemen, it's been a very interesting half hour speaking to you all. Willie Tulloch from PIM, Neil Wilson from Can Group, Louis Pietranic from Westerton Access. For all our guests out there, for all our viewers out there, please pick up on what these guys are talking about. Connect with them, extend the conversation. If you can't find them, I don't know how that's possible these days, but if you can't find them, come through us and we'll put you in touch. We thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. We have one coming. Here we go. Just we'll take it as they come in live. Whoever wants to pick this up can grab it. To each of you, if you had a magic wand, what is the one challenge you would try and address first, and give it your best? Willie, off the top of your head, what's the one thing, if you could fix one thing right now in asset integrity moving forward, what would you fix?
Well, it would be getting a consistent and long-term energy policy for the.
So Willie, starting at the top, starting with policy.
Very the top, right at the top.
Louis,
changing that race to be second mentality. I think
changing that race to be second mentality is excellent. Neil,
I think focus on the basics. Stop concentrating on the new technology. The technology is an add-on. It's a tool, another tool in the box, but it's not an answer in itself.
Fantastic. Short and sweet. Brilliant question, Steve. Thanks for that. I just caught it out the corner of my eye just before we went there. Willie, Louis, Neil, an absolute pleasure. We will see you again, no doubt. Thank you very much for your time. See you soon.
Thank you.
Wasn't that great? Thank you to all of those guys. We do mean it. Reach out to them, extend the conversation. That's what this is all about. That's what we do this for, to let you see who's at the cutting edge of what's happening in the industry and allow you to connect with them. We're going to move on to our Market Watch section of the show. This is where we find out about all the very latest in what's going on in the world right now. And we have Neil Golding. Neil, you are with us. You are there, Director of Market Intelligence at the Energy Industries Council. How the devil are you?
Not bad, thanks, Eric. Very good, in fact.
Very good. I'm going to put you, Dan Hyland, who produces this show, always likes me to be on the bottom. He likes the guests to be on the top where they belong. And now you've been with us from the start. It's a couple of years now you've been doing this show. You're a familiar face. And we always get lovely feedback that people love this part of the show and finding out what's actually going on in the world, because people are busy, and this allows them to find out what's going on. So we always start major announcements or significant announcements recently made by majors in the oil and gas sector that might affect future plans. What do you know?
Oh, well, unless you've been under a stone, you may not have seen all of the announcements that have been recently made by the major operators, and that there is that commitment still towards oil and gas, and that's becoming very clear from not just, I guess, the majors, but the NOCs as well, and record profits from a number of these organizations, depending on which side of the fence you sit upon. That's either a good thing or a bad thing going forward. But look, these majors are making some sizable investments, and very interesting to pick up. And actually, it's a nice segue into some of those projects from something that Willie mentioned in that last session around West Africa being a very attractive market to do business right now. And we've seen the likes of Shell make yet further discovery of oil through the drilling of the Jonker 1X oil discovery well there. This is a deep water discovery offshore Namibia, and that follows another couple of discoveries that were recently made in 2022. Sticking with the West Africa theme, I'll go to Agogo, the full field development project there. Azul Energy, that's JV between BP and ENI. That organization's recently reached a final investment decision on a multi-billion-dollar project, and we've seen a number of contracts awarded for that particular project. Successful contractors include the likes of Saipem, Baker Hughes, Technip FMC, Subsea 7, and Aker Solutions, and Yinson have got the FPSO contract for that one. And also in Angola, the Total Energies are particularly busy as well, and they expect to sanction the Khmer Golfinho field development in the middle of 2023, and that project as well is not small. It's $6 billion, so sizable projects in that region. I've just see something coming in as well, Cameroon, one to watch. And interestingly, the Yo-Yo and Yolanda development, this is a project that has been stalled. This is for some time. This is Chevron's development. We've recently seen Equatorial Guinea and Cameroon sign a treaty that could unlock the development of this particular project, which will likely be developed as a subsea tieback to Chevron's offshore facilities in Equatorial Guinea. Elsewhere in South Africa, or well, sorry, Sub-Saharan Africa as well, you've got BP continuing to make investments there. The planning phase 2 of the Greater Tortue Amium, I'll get that name correctly, Amium project going forward. Potentially a final investment decision on that project in 2024. And Tanzania, this has been a market that's long been talked about as potential opportunities, and we've seen Shell and Equinor move forward and having concluded negotiations with the government of Tanzania for the construction of an LNG liquefaction plant, and that will require some significant gas resources to be developed offshore as well. So a few years behind Mozambique, which sits to the south, but that's going to be a great opportunity going forward. So it's clearly a very buoyant market in West Africa and wider Sub-Saharan Africa, but of course Gulf of Mexico, Latin America as well. There continues to be some sizable opportunities in those markets also.
Thanks for that. We've all seen some announcements made recently by the majors that they see oil and gas sector as still an important part of their future, and there's been some commitments made to that in text and in interviews. Do you see this pulling through to projects that are coming through, or organizations that are kick-starting developments that have been on hold?
Yeah, some of those projects that I touched upon there were those projects under development by the majors. But yeah, we are beginning to see those projects that perhaps were delayed for one reason or another now come through. And a lot of that is down to underinvestment that's been seen in the oil and gas sector over the last few years as well. We have to continue to recover reserves and make new discoveries. That's one thing that's very clear, that oil and gas is however unpopular it's going to make me, is here to stay for some substantial time, and that's obviously linked to the energy security piece specifically. So the majors are going to remain committed. Are they doing enough in the renewable space? There's a question around that as well at the moment, but there are some real sizable projects around the globe that these organizations are developing that are in the sweet spot of conventional upstream, midstream, and downstream developments.
So it's great to hear you come with some buoyancy in your report to us on that particular sector. What do you see happening in the wider energy sector in the UK?
Yeah, Eric, I'm always very mindful that I don't talk very much. In fact, we very rarely talk between Westwood and myself on the UK market, but it is a huge area of opportunity for the supply chain. Not out with the impact that the EPL has had on the UK operators in the oil and gas sector. There are a huge number of opportunities right now across the UK. And in multiple sectors as well. And offshore wind, we've heard about there from Willie. You know, we've got that 50 gigawatt target by 2030 to hit. We're currently standing at 14 gigawatts. How are we going to deliver that additional 36 gigawatts of capacity? We will wait and see. I love the ambition, but we're also now seeing the likes of hydrogen and carbon capture projects. They're gaining momentum, and I think that there's a reason to be optimistic about the way that they'll proceed going forward. And you know, the latest budget announcement, £20 billion of funding over 20 years for carbon capture is really quite exciting. So there are plenty of opportunities. The issue right now is identifying which of those projects are going to move forward. Yeah. And there are several developers that over the course of the past 2 days, I've been down in Leeds, or up in Leeds, or down in Leeds for you guys, up in Leeds, where several developers have announced that there's going to be projects that are going to reach final investment decision within the carbon capture sector, the sustainable aviation fuel sector as well. These are £1 billion plus projects that we're talking about. There's going to be a bow wave of opportunities that are going to require largely the oil and gas supply chain to help deliver these as well. So keep your eye out on the activities in particular around carbon capture. RFQs for the EPCs expected back end of this year, second half, and final investment decisions first quarter of next year, and alongside that 2 SAF projects as well, one developed by Alphanar, another being developed by LanzaTech. But someone mentioned hydrogen.
Yeah, and you've been off attending carbon CCUS and hydrogen events.
Yeah, that's right. And look, we were of this view that hydrogen and carbon capture would come through together. I think what's very clear at the moment is that there's a huge amount of opportunities in hydrogen. The business models aren't right yet. They're not in place. And that, again, picking up on what Willie said, energy bill. It would be lovely to finally get that over the line so that we can actually recognize and see what the landscape might look like. We absolutely need that energy bill. So hopefully that will come through fairly soon. But hydrogen looks as though it's about 12 to 18 months behind potentially at large scales versus carbon capture at the moment. And I don't know if Equinor are listening, but Dan Sadler presented absolutely brilliantly around some of the challenges that are faced right now going forward. And there's some very clear messages that we're hearing from both carbon capture and hydrogen. How do we develop that? We need collaboration between all parties. We need to begin to share information as well as to the best way to develop these projects going forward. And that collaboration that I talk about is between operators, it's actually, and also the supply chain. Engage the supply chain early, and in particular the OEM suppliers in those sectors, because frankly, supply chain constraints, that is one area of serious concern. Now, we've got the capabilities to deliver these projects, but there's the access to materials, specialist metals, access to people. Again, you've touched upon that. Could be you could carry on every month doing that. Yeah. But this we need to think outside the UK bubble here. This isn't just a UK issue. This is very much a kind of European and almost a global issue right now, that there aren't the people to deliver these future projects. And I feel that really the pace needs to pick up on both hydrogen and carbon capture projects going forward, and UK to be seen as a first mover so that we can seed and root the supply chain within the UK. So it's exciting times, but not without its challenges.
Hey, all we heard was a lovely buoyant report and a bow wave of opportunities. That's the quotes we're taking. If we can, I'm going to take a question, and maybe you can have a go at this one. It's from Paul Wilkinson. Paul has asked, we might not get all the text on here, so I'll read it out. If Namibia and South Africa begin to replicate the huge success that Exxon and others have had in Guyana, do you see the FPSO market coming under pressure? If shipyards in Asia are at capacity, can we expect to see more demand for older vessels in the field? Hold on, for older vessels or fields nearing the end of life or closer closer to home?
That's a great question.
That's a topper.
And that is, thank you, Paul, for that one. And I will try and tackle that. We've just done a piece of work which highlights that there's going to be 100+ FPSOs potentially required globally. And these are going to be new builds. There'll also be conversions. Namibia, South Africa, let's wait and see what kind of resource is that we're going to see there. I know that there are issues in terms of difficulties in the currents, which will make those developments particularly challenging. So will an FPSO be the right kind of development concept? We will wait to see that. But I think already we're beginning to see some pressure being put on the FPSOs yards. In particular, I know there's a project in Malaysia, Limbiong, which Petronas has been developing. They have delayed the procurement of an FPSO. It's just a challenging market right now, and I do feel that we're going to find yet more constraints again to potentially deliver these projects going forward. So are we going to see more demand for older vessels? Yes, quite possibly as well. I think that there's going to be a little bit more movement as some of those fields come to end of life within the more mature markets, potentially to move those vessels onto these newer field developments. But are they big enough to handle the quantities and the volumes that are being talked about for some of these new field developments? That's another question, which I don't have the answer for.
Thank you, Paul. Great question. And thank you, Neil, for your market update for us. Always great to have you on the show. Thanks so much, and we will catch you next time. For anyone who's never connected with Paul, please connect with him, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. Get in touch with them and extend the conversation. Thank you, Neil.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So we normally wrap up the show towards the end, but we have another special guest. We are going to go now and meet with Gunnar Hilson from Oceaneering. Hello, Gunnar. Welcome.
Hello, Eric. How are you?
Very well indeed. Very well indeed. If you could just either shout a little bit louder or come a bit closer to your microphone, Gunnar.
I can try closer. I can shout. I can do everything.
So, global account manager at Oceaneering, but with a vast, long history in the asset integrity world, Gunnar. Is that right? Stretching back.
That's a half lifetime already.
Half lifetime already, of course.
Within this space. So this has been my core theme throughout my career. So it's really encouraging listening to what the guys have said already with Willie and Alistar and all the teams here. They're really encouraging.
Very good indeed, and lots of focus on it. Lots of energy around it. So you're over in Stavanger, but you have a global remit, right?
That's correct.
So what is your take? I mean, you've been there, man and boy, your whole life in this asset integrity space. What is your take on the overall sort of driver or challenges that we see in asset integrity in 2023?
Yeah, asset integrity in safety is some kind of assurance for safety, operational performance, and to this, governance standards to the operators, risk level and throughout all the asset lifecycle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very easy said. It's more challenge into that mix due that there is constraints in the benefits of the short and long term, and there is also objectives that is corporate and priorities, and of course the chosen risk profile. I think that is maybe the main core. What kind of risk profile and what kind of we run after, and we see different kind of level of what's standard. It's very nice to see that some taken high end to it, but again, it's to determine what to do and not to do, and there is always some surprises coming down the road with asset integrity. There is some surprises, some unexpected things that will cost you a little bit more than you thought in the beginning. So that's some of the complex into the mix, and some priorities has to be made, and that's, I think, this is the fun stuff also. There's lots of things that you can develop and improve in this space, and I think that we have heard a lot of nice stuffs already today that are on that journey. I'm really happy to.
That's one of the things. Full disclosure: Gunnar and I used to work together, and one of the things that used to inspire me about working with Gunnar was his excitement about new technology, new advances, new ways of thinking, new processes that make asset integrity also more valuable. So on that, what specific movements have you seen in the energy industry with regards to asset integrity? What things can you pinpoint that are moving and progressing?
Yeah, I think there's been touched upon some of them, but I think it's three things I will mention here today. Not to go into length, but predictive maintenance is one. Moving away from calendar-based to that some system tells you need to shift something. No, we need to determine the condition and run upon condition and figure out what is the level. Goes it faster or slower than we expected? And when you should actually do shift. And with the new technology that's been mentioned upon, there's lots of new technology on the horizon here with remote inspection. People sit at home and do inspections and determine if the degradation has been faster or slower. Easier access with drones. There's air drones, subsea drones. My company is running the subsea drones, so we try to figure out leaks and all those juicy stuffs. And dogs, it's land dogs that is running now with Boston, to figure out, combined with artificial intelligence and machine learning, we can faster determine things. And it's lots of development in that space. Human robotics, I've seen some videos already.
Yeah.
In service inspection already. It's really, really. As you talked about this 10 years about robotic methods, now we are really, really close to come to that. And also in that space, black boxes telling you when things shall be fixed or conditions levels and so on. We see that more and more. And of course, software calculators that do predictions in minutes instead of days of engineering.
Yeah.
If I can do some advertisement, we have a tool called Inform Predict, and we will try to cheat with it and see if you can put in less data. It comes up, oh, come on, you need to bring in more if you should do some calculations. So it's lots of development in the technology side. That's one space. The other space is within, I think, the process. I think the decision gaze needs to be shortened. I think it's what to do within technical integrity is too lengthy, where we have to first measure, figure it out, analyze. Maybe a team has to analyze for weeks, months, and then we have to determine what is the best solution or the optimal solution or affordable solution, and then deciding for execution and those things. So we do think that that there is a movement towards shortening that process. You need to figure out, because you would like to have as much time for planning and execution and not so much figure things out. So within hoist and non-intrusive inspection teams, they try every day to come up with better detection methods for animals, and that's a key. Sensoric, and those needs to be some mention here is non-intrusive is expensive, yes, but it's coming at a lower cost eventually. Some competence needs to be feed into those who are doing actually this process shortening. Then we need to have more competence into one body. And of course, collaboration has been mentioned, where I do see that if you want to resolve things faster, you need to be collaborative. You need to get the engineers in there. You need to get the operators in there. Operators and engineers talking to each other. That's a rare thing, And that's, there's the guy up there. They're calculating all this shit, They don't and we are operating it. We know how it works. So we need to get together, be friends, and then looking at how we can process data and how to be data efficient in this way. So that is the process side of things. And the last thing I want to mention is visualization, not digitalization, visualization. Now we can go in real time into space. It's an eye opener, and you can actually point at things. You can determine the conditions. This conditions statement there is performance data there. I know that several operators is on that journey. Alistar mentioned that they are there. I think that the digital twin has get a little much too boost. It's very static today. We need to get it into dynamic forms, collaborative forms, And I still hear that report sucks around the globe. Yes, somebody has not figured out how to report correctly and fast enough. So we need to have reports faster and nicer to determine actually some of the bow, because if we can streamline all of this within the digitalization, yes, we have come one step further on. So that's those 3 points I want to elaborate on today on these movements that I see on my seat.
So you mentioned digital, you mentioned digitalization, digital transformation, whatever we want to call it. Clearly, digital has a massive part to play in the advancement and progress of asset integrity and inspection data and all of that. As you've said before, it's a building block, but not all at once. How do you see this? How do you see this going forward? Because I know that you keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in digital. How's it going to help us moving forward in energy?
Yeah, we are collecting tremendous amount of data around the world. I think that we have historic into the globe. We have in our business collecting 3.5 million points every day in data. Yeah. So there needs to come some decision dashboard, automatic views that helps us to make some kind of decisions. To get all this information, sorted, treated fairly. I think that is a focus area to make it easy for people, because some of this is really advanced and maybe have calculators, maybe have some kind of data ninjas who do the job for you, goes in and go through all these data sets that you have and picks up that don't correlate accordingly. So that's a bit the way I see in the digitalization. I know that the data ninja I actually stole from Equinor actually. So.
You're nothing but honest. You're nothing but honest. Data. I was going to give you massive kudos there for Data Ninja. Fantastic. Gunnar, if it's okay with you, we're going to take a question from our audience. So, because Graham has mentioned you by name, it's only fair that we do this. Does Gunnar and Oceaneering believe that prevention is often better than cure when it comes to asset maintenance and integrity? And if so, how much importance is placed on chemical procurement that can assist this process? So on the topic of prevention being better than cure.
Yeah, it's, sometimes the symptom is worse than the cure. Yes, it is sometimes. Yes, and I think we need to overcome some of the thinking that things the technology hurdle and the cure is can we find if you ask me, can we resolve one thing in this industry is CUI. If you can choose, I would choose that tomorrow in a blink.
So that would be your one fix if you could.
One fix, because CUI has been here for tremendous and cost us so much money. I don't want to go with data and so on. Can I fix CUI? Yes. So the cure, of course, is good. But do preventive and figure things out. Yes, that's cool stuff. But if you can take things away and really fix that's number one.
We have one more question. LinkedIn user, if you can tell us your name just in the chat, because unfortunately the LinkedIn isn't pulling through to this with you. So LinkedIn user asks, are you finding it difficult to get new people into asset integrity work, and how do you inspire the youth to come along?
Yeah, many years ago, I didn't say I worked in the asset integrity space in the bar. I didn't, to be honest. You need to have some passion, and you need to have some dedication. But I have hired people from chemistry, process, all kind of engineers into the asset integrity, and they have found it really, really good because they get so many different challenges every day. So if you want to do blueprints, yes, okay, you can do that and design and all this. But in asset integrity, every day is a new challenge, it's a new thing to tackle on with. So when I speak to and hire people in our areas, they are interesting areas. Yes, there is some constraint as of these days after the pandemic and all this. But I think talking to the industry and having sessions like that, inviting the students and talk to the students about what we do, taking care in a risk perspective of ESG moments and all this. I think this is a really, really okay. Yes, there is a chance to get people, but talk about it in the right way. Yes, we will get.
Gunnar Hilson, it is always a pleasure to speak with you. We'd love to have you back on future shows to get an insight into what you're thinking.
Yeah, if you invite me next year on this session, so maybe we can take up some of these boxes we talked about this day.
Absolutely, big time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gunnar. We will see you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for sticking with us on the show. We are now at the end. We have news just in. News just into my ear. The producers of the show have decided that today's winner of our best question or comment is Paul Wilkinson. So Paul Wilkinson, with your question about FPSOs, the FPSO market, to Neil, and you're from Wilkinson Coots Engineering Training. So congratulations. You will be receiving a contact from Dan Hyland, I'm sure, to set up a free half-page editorial or advert in a future issue of OGV Energy Magazine. I'm contractually obliged to do that whenever I say OGV Energy Magazine. I need to lift up a copy. So thank you very much. Well done to Paul, and thank you to Gunnar. So thanks to all of our guests today, and thank you for giving us your time and staying with us. Thanks for your amazing contribution to this show. This show is nothing without you guys, and your comments and questions are absolutely fantastic. So today we dove into asset integrity. Please connect with our guests and extend the conversation. Perhaps you could be on this show next month, because we are back on Thursday, April the 20th at 2 p.m, where the theme will be innovation and technology. Innovation and technology is our theme for next month. Thursday, April the 20th at 2 p.m, we will be running a show. If you are sitting out there, if you're part of the OGV Energy membership community and you're thinking, I've got something to add to that, get in touch with Dan Hyland and he will sort you out. For now, thank you so much for your time. We've run over a little bit on time, but it was an excellent show. And thank you to you, Frank, for that comment. Thank you to you, Graham. Excellent. We enjoyed it so much. We will catch you next time. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.